Hello class. In this video we're going to be reviewing rates, unit rates, rate tables, and we're going to be talking a little bit about equations. Now I do want to remind you that while you're watching this video you should be taking detailed notes. I will be checking your notes during Thursday's warm-up activity. If your notes are not detailed enough, I will ask you to redo your notes on this video. Now we should know that rates are just a ratio comparing two different units. So for example, if Charles ran 20 miles in 3.5 hours, miles and hours are two different units. Similarly, if Mr. Lopez sold 48 snacks in 5 days, snacks and days are our two different units. Now we did talk about a specific type of rate yesterday, which is a unit rate. And a unit rate is just a rate that is making a comparison to a unit equal to 1. So we're going to talk about an example of this and how most rates are actually possible to create two unit rates. So in this example, we're going to be comparing Ms. Zuccaro's tests to the number of minutes it takes to actually grade them. So we're going to create two different rates. Our first one is going to say 8 tests over 4 minutes. And the second one we're doing is going to be comparing the 4 minutes to the 8 tests. Now, if we're going to create a unit rate, what we'll be doing is making a proportion where our denominator is equal to 1 minute and our numerator is unknown. And just as we did that on this side of our rate, we're going to be doing this as well. So we're going to be making comparison to 1 test to our unknown amount of minutes. So for this first example and our second example, it's actually pretty easy. All we'll be doing here is dividing by a factor of 4. 4 divided by 4 gives me 1. 8 divided by 4 gives me a value of 2 tests. So I know here that Ms. Zuccaro grades 2 tests per minute. And you should remember from yesterday's video that the word per means for every. So Ms. Zuccaro grades 2 tests for every 1 minute. And just as we did in our example over here, we're going to be finding our unit rate by dividing by our denominator, or in this case 8 tests. And we'll be doing the same with our numerator, so we'll be seeing that to grade 1 test, it takes half a minute. So in this case, I will be writing Miss Z takes half a minute per test. So this unit rate tells me it's 2 tests for every 1 minute. This unit rate tells me it's half a minute for every 1 test. Now we're going to be focusing on this unit rate for our rate table in our next slide. So again, we have that Ms. Zuccaro graded 8 tests in 4 minutes. Now here I'll need to fill out my rate table. And if you'd like to try this on your own and check your work later, you can pause the video right now, complete this rate table. But I'm going to be starting this right off the bat. So I know to go from 4 tests to 2 tests, that's dividing by a factor of 2. So we'll also divide 8 by 2, which is 4. To go from 2 to 1, we again divide by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. 4 divided by 2 is going to give us a value of 2. And I'm going to put a gold star over here because this unit rate is going to be very important, especially when we're writing our equations. And you'll see why in just a minute. Now, another reason why this unit rate is very important is because we can use this to calculate any value that we're looking for. So for example, I can go from 1 minute to 7 minutes by multiplying by a factor of 7. And 2 times 7 gives me 14. I can also go from 1 minute all the way to 18 minutes by multiplying by 18. And 2 times 18 is 36. Now, what we'll be asked to do next is actually write an equation comparing the number of minutes m and the number of tests t. So these are our two variables that need to be in our equation. Now, if you don't know what an equation is, the most simple example I can give is that 1 plus 1 equals 2. This side of our equation is equal to this side. And similarly, an equation that's very famous is length times width equals the area of a rectangle. So the area of the rectangle is equal to the width times the length. Both of these values are actually the same. Now, what I'll be doing here is I'm going to be making a third little column, and you'll see why I'll be doing this in just a moment. And I'm also going to include a 100-minute example, and you'll see why in just a moment as well. So, if I want to write an equation, the best way to do this is think of some examples in the rate table that you already have. Now, if I want to calculate how many tests we can grade per minute, I know that our unit rate is 2. This never changes. It's always twice the number of tests as we have minutes. So I know that 2 tests times 1 minute gives me a value of 2. 2 tests per minute times 2 gives me 4 tests graded. And I'll be doing these for all of these examples, and you'll see why in just a minute. So 2 times 4 tests, so 2 tests per minute times 4 minutes equals 8. 2 times 7 minutes equals 14 tests. And 18 times, or I should say, 2 times 18, the 18 minutes gives us 36 tests. Now, when you write an equation, you always want to have a couple of examples to look back on, because many times you'll see people writing the correct values for the unit rate, in this case which is 2, but they'll mix up their equations. So some people might write, and I'll let you decide which one is the correct equation. Some people will write 2m equals t, or 2t equals m. So let's look back at our examples. 2 is our unit rate. That is what these 2's represent. And if you remember, 1 represents the minute. So 2 times the number of minutes equals the number of tests. So I'm going to make sure that this is actually my equation. Twice the number of minutes equals the number of tests. So this is not the correct equation. So I can look at this rate table and see 2 times 100, well, that's 200. And this equation can be used to solve any number of tests. I can say 2 times 5, that's 10 tests. 2 times 6, that's 12 tests. So we're going to be going through another example just to show you how we can use this equation to solve another type of rate table. So here we see that 4 packs of fruit snacks cost $1. So I'm going to be making my own rate table over here. Please ignore this. So if we have 4 over here, I know 4 packs of snacks is $1. And I can go from 4 to 1 by dividing by 4. 1 divided by 4 is actually going to give us 25 cents. So this is our value. If I want to go to 3, I'm going to see that that's times 3. 25 cents times 3 is going to give me 75 cents. 1 times 5, well, that's $1.25 for the number or the value or the cost. 125. 1 times 10 is 10. 25 cents times 10 is $2.50. And I can do that for any of these values. So 35 times the 25 cents is going to give us the cost of our number of snacks if we want 35 snacks. And we're going to be figuring this out later with our equation. You'll see why. So here, we need to write an equation comparing the number of snacks S to the cost C. So again, my unit rate, this right here, this important number over here is going to be valuable to us. All right. So I know that the 25 cents times the number of snacks 1 is going to be our price of 25 cents. Over here, so I'll make some more room over here, the 25 cents times 3 is going to give us, excuse me for the small print, is 75 cents. I'm going to skip 4 for right now, since there's not a lot of space, my apologies. The 25 cents times the 5 snacks is going to give us 125. And again, the 25 cents times the 10 snacks is going to give us 250. So you're going to want to remind yourself, what do each one of these values represent? So for this equation, my unit rate is going to be front and center of my equation, so 0.25. All right, this is my unit rate, or it's also called the constant of proportionality. You'll be seeing what that means later, probably Thursday or Friday. Now, this 1, this 3, this 5 represents the number of snacks. So I'm going to put S for the number of snacks, and that 25 cents, that 75 cents, that $1.25 is our cost. So our variable is C. So 25 cents times the number of snacks equals the cost, or how much we pay. So this is our equation. Now let's go back to this 35 value. So I can actually use this equation to help us out. 25 cents times the number of snacks, in this case 35, is going to give a value of $8.75. So if I want to buy 35 snacks, I'm going to need $8.75. Here's our unit rate. It's front and center of our equation. For our values, whether they're 35, 10, 5, that's the number of snacks we have. And that gives us our final cost of $1.25 or $2.50 or $8.75, whatever it might be. So now that you're done taking notes on this video, I want to remind you to please try to finish any questions from the green worksheet that you have not completed. Do not worry about any questions regarding Desmo, since I have not shown you the app yet. You may skip those, but I do want to make sure that whether you answer your questions on the worksheet or whether you did them in your notebook, please be sure to show the sub your work before they give you the gym membership problems that you should be working on today. If you have any questions, please feel free to message me through Power Learning.